Greetings and welcome to my 6.5 tier list. Yes, tier lists are absolutely pointless in a game that takes balancing seriously, so much that it even takes fun out of some jobs. However, let's just pretend it would actually matter which job you choose to take into endgame content, as every single one of them can clear content. X-Trials, Savage and Ultimates. That said, this time I definitely want to include casual content too, so dungeons, Criterion or just doing stuff to bridge the gap between Endwalker and Dawn Trail. Which brings us to the star of the show, the Warrior. Shortest oh shit button, high tank DPS in Savage, Ultimate or X-Trials, probably highest dungeon damage and just tons of mitigation and self-heal. If you ever consider doing old raid solo, Warrior plays in a league of its own. But when just doing your daily expert run, Warrior also just makes all other tanks pale in comparison. But it even seems to be the strongest choice for crystalline conflict. Right now, except for the absolute best party setups trying to min-max every little detail of their group, I don't see any reason not to choose Warrior. Especially as it's also a true starting class with the Marauder. Some people call this job a one-man army and I agree, absolute S-tier material. Another solid choice is the Gunbreaker. Even though it might not be as versatile as the Warrior, it does basically everything the Warrior's traits do, second best, while also offering a very cool combat rotation. However, Paladin and Dark Knight are right up its heels, and except for some minor overlapping features, they are better or worse in different scenarios. Dark Knight and Paladin might be better off-tank choices and have a slight advantage for shielding up other party members, but these differences are very much neglectable. Personally, I would give the Dark Knight the edge over the others due to how satisfying dungeon runs feel on the former poster boy. But taking in the raw numbers in Savage, Paladin and Warrior are just slightly more popular and seem to be the most played tank combo, where Gunbreaker takes the lead on the damage side of things. So except for being the absolute powerhouse in everything on the Warrior, the others aren't falling short either in my opinion, and still provide enough skill differences to make them appeal to different types of players. The same can be said about our dear melee jobs. Looking at our DPS, it is insane how close they are. But if you really want the big numbers to be shown inside of your certain tool, there's no way around a Samurai. But even here, Reaper, Ninja, Dragoon and Monk are definitely close. I guess if fun and combat system completeness would be a defining factor, Ninja would be on the top spot of the list, but I guess there will be as many fans of Monks, Dragoons, Reapers and Samurais on the same page too. In dungeons they all kinda perform on the same level, and as Reaper and Samurai don't get backdropped while leveling, you can easily swap over to them once you have reached the necessary MSQ progress and bought their respective expansions. Just that Reaper offers this little extra defensive capability and in my opinion has a slightly more flexible rotation, which can easily be adjusted to the encounter timings and design. So I would grant Reaper and Samurai the A+ spots and the others I would drop down to A, which seems to be reflected by the number of total parses in Savage content. Coming to ranged physical DPS, who do compete very evenly now, and even though Dancer and Bard offer the slightly more advanced defensive kit, which is never reflected by charts or numbers, their actual RDPS seems very close. Even though I'm confident to call myself a machinist main now, which I actually hate to classify, but some people need this level of commitment I guess. Because machinists take a slight edge over their role competition and get very close to the melee territory, and on the ADPS chart they are even in between them, so a solid choice for anyone loving to deal big gun action damage. Dancer and Bard perform very identically, but as the number of parses indicate, Dancer has way more popularity inside of actually tackling the more difficult content, which might be in line with the fact that certain party compositions massively benefit from Dancer support, especially a Samurai. Also, the Bard's rotation, while I actually love it for the playstyle aspect, is a bit finicky when bosses interrupt your common rotation cycle frequently. Dancer just keeps pushing a clean 2-minute window burst and fits better into the typical rearrangement requirements of certain encounters. For Machinist, I actually don't know the reason people are not playing it that much, because it's just insanely flexible and easy to perform, even on a solid mid-tier performance. But I guess the lacking synergy with the party's damage setup might be a problem for well-optimized scenarios. For dungeons though, Bard it is my friends. Machinist feels insanely boring in dungeons and Dancer might be more interesting and actually performs insanely well, but both pale in comparison to the action shooter feeling of the Bard in dungeons. And can you imagine it had been even better in early Shadowbringers or even Stormblood? However, as fun and gameplay aspects are very tough to equate and pass judgment about, I would still place Dancer and Machinist on A, while Bard is put to A-. It just doesn't bring much to the table that the Dancer is not offering, while Machinist at least has its selfish DPS that you can wallow in. Okay, let's talk about my old passion, casters. While they try to address the fact that Red Mage seem to be underperforming quite a bit, those changes in 6.5 were an absolute joke. If I would not have changed the rules and context of this tier list, you could easily just look at my 6.4 one and apply that to 6.5. But when taking in dungeons or other forms of content like A-rank trains or open world dailies etc, these casters are insane. Especially the Summoner due to its very high peak burst opportunities and the new shield and self-heal it received in Endwalker. Red Mage always had those two aspects, but in my opinion still suffers from the limited flexibility the Summoner has. It is still quite a caster, even though the dual system addresses that, but you still need to hard cast from time to time, and on top of that you have to visit the melee field too, and especially longer than a Summoner needs to. Black Mage on the other hand kinda remained true to its core design, even though Square has refined that job more and more with each further expansion. I'm not sure if that has something to do with Yoshida playing it, but overall this might be the most consistent job from A Realm Reborn to Endwalker. However, where they differ is the spot and function they serve. Black Mage is more on the raw damage output side of things, where Red Mage and Summoner tend into a more balanced field, where both offer a very unique trait, namely raising. That is on par with that of healers, but on the Red Mage it's even better. That's why it's a bit sad that performance-wise Red Mage is still falling a bit short. That's also reflected by the total number of passes, as it's very similar to Summoner, but people prefer it over a fancy Red Mage. Black Mage isn't that popular as well, but I highly address that onto its skill floor and ceiling, which might be the highest among all jobs in general. So keep that in mind whenever you want to play Final Fantasy XIV in Dark Souls mode. Not this one, but on the difficulty level. In dungeons, the Summoner isn't really that much better than a Red Mage, but all casters basically destroy mobs in no time, and I consider them the heaviest hitters in full AoE scenarios. Black Mage might be a bit clunky at the start, but if played well, it deals tons of damage. So overall Black Mage and Summoner take the lead still, due to Summoner being a slightly better Red Mage and Black Mage fully embracing the selfish DPS with big numbers on calculation helpers. But in one thing they all share some similarities, because they fall short compared to the melee roster. So A to Summoner and Black Mage and A- for the Red Mage. Healers. This is where I'm still super uncertain about, but according to many players' feedback, they all fulfill their duty. And each one of them does exactly the same offensive, quotation mark, rotation. So I would still recommend to let the gameplay aspect reign over this bracket. And on the other hand, you might focus on having one shield and one hot healer. According to the total number of parsers, just the Astrologian falls off significantly, and shield healers are just the better option on raw healing output. Sage and Scholar do also offer some nice utility, where the Scholar's expedient ability might take the lead. On the other hand, a well-played Sage in dungeons is the best freaking job you can take with you, except a warrior maybe, but white mages with their holy skill are still freaking insane and absolutely powerful too. But you could also remember that Scholar has the superpower of also leveling up a Summoner, where Astrologian seems to be working way harder to match its competition in reaching the kinda same result. So I would say overall every job here has its own target audience. White Mage with its raw simplicity and power, Sage with a kit that handles every situation in the most versatile way, or the Scholar with its extra benefits, and yes, Astrologian for the people that just want to suffer. A for the first three and A- for a dual master. Alright, take this list with a heavy grain of salt and always remember to base your decision on personal enjoyment, as playing a job you really like might also lead to a better performance with it. Everyone's performance is so close together that you can play each of them. However, I still love to talk about these things and would even love more to hear what you think about the meta. So let me know your placement in the comment section. Oh, and by the way, Blue Mage has an increased level range now, so we might actually see it creeping up to the real meta with future patches. Until then, stay safe, stay healthy, and keep loving Final Fantasy.